172 miles away from the nearest international airport and 178 miles away from any Air Force testing range, Shag Harbour, Nova Scotia is an unlikely location for sightings of unidentified spacecraft. But UFO investigator Chris Stiles has come to this tiny outpost on the eastern edge of North America because of stories his grandfather told him about one strange October night in 1967. Stiles has uncovered an extraordinary paper trail of evidence, confirming that something anomalous, something very unconventional, crashed into the Atlantic off the coast of Shag Harbour, just as his grandfather had always described.
He told me about a 60-foot disc with 4 bright white lights that had hovered for a time in the air, tilted at a 45-degree angle, and slid down and hit the water surface with a loud noise.
Nearly 30 years after the crash, Stiles has discovered that there were many other eyewitnesses who still remember the crash like it was yesterday.
We thought it was a plane crash. The way it turned out was, we don't know what it was.
Laurie Wickens is a local fisherman, born and raised around Shag Harbour. He was driving at night with several friends when he spotted the strange craft.
We just come over that hill and we was driving towards Woods Harbour and we see lights. We thought it was an airplane that was coming on and going off, 4 in sequence. 1 would come on, and 2, and 3, and 4, then they'd all be out for a few seconds, then it'd start over.
Wickens and his friends saw the object crash into the harbour. They called the RCMP, who responded to the impact site.
At that time, there was a single light, maybe a half-mile offshore, quite visible, but it was really dark. I was left on shore to keep an eye on the light and to watch where if anything happened to it, and briefly interview the witnesses as I was doing it. Within 5 minutes, 7 minutes, the light extinguished.
The RCMP alerted the Coast Guard, and until they arrived, local fishermen scoured Shag Harbour looking for survivors of what was thought to be a light plane crash. Captain Lawrence Smith was among the first to reach the impact site.
All I saw was some heavy yellow foam floating on the water. It was thick like shaving cream, but it was about 3 inches thick on top of the water. There was no smell. And I thought then, well, you know, if a plane crashed and it skidded across the water for a ways, that it wouldn't make a foam. But then I couldn't figure out why it would be yellow.
Early search and rescue efforts were conducted in full view of the public. Films were made. Newspapers carried the story as front-page news. Then, without warning, there was no more public disclosure. Chris Stiles believes this is because of what may have been found there.
I believe that this was a device, possibly a craft, possibly a probe, from another intelligent civilization, not of this earth.
Stiles has reached this conclusion after examining hundreds of documents obtained through the Canadian version of the U.S. Freedom of Information Act. Among the documents he has uncovered is this Canadian Armed Forces memo stating that the Rescue Coordination Center conducted preliminary investigation and discounted the possibilities that the sighting was produced by an aircraft, flare, or any other known objects.
There were a number of related sightings that night. In those hours before, an Air Canada flight saw UFO activity on the horizon. They were greatly disturbed. There was apparently large explosions occurring, and as the phenomena approached the aircraft, there was a lot of communication with the towers, and eventually it was decided to vacate the airspace and seek alternate routes.
Even more eyewitness accounts were found in a secret RCMP file.
Captain Leo Howard Mersey was the master of a dragger. He had 18 men aboard. All were witnesses to 4 UFOs in the distance on the water surface. They had radar returns, and after observing them for 2 hours, one of them became airborne and arced in the sky southwest toward the Shag Harbour area, which was 175 miles away.
As a public search for the craft began in Shag Harbour, behind the scenes,
many people have come, including locals, to tell a story that while this operation was going on in Shag Harbour, there was another operation up the coast about 25 miles away off of Government Point.
In 1967, Government Point was the site of a super-secret military base. Former base divers claimed the search at Shag Harbour diverted attention away from the UFO's final resting place, off Government Point.
while they were down there, there was still activity going on. They were reluctant to confirm details, but they knew that this thing was being repaired. As one person told me, the other object was standing nines for it, is the expression they used, sort of overlooking and giving it protection, assistance, whatever was necessary. And they're quite certain from their experiences that this was nothing that was produced here on Earth. And some of the divers insist that they did indeed bring up some debris.
Stiles searched for documentation to support the divers' claims and found it in this letter written 2 months after the Shag Harbour incident. It specifically mentions DND, Department of National Defense, UFO material available for review. Based on this information, Chris Stiles is mounting a recovery operation to search for more UFO debris. Sightings will document this search and bring you the findings on an upcoming edition of our program.